Today we have a lot on our plate. The elections in Iran were one big joke at the expense of the Iranian people. Political correctness destroy Western nations. And what is the situation up north and down south in Israel? Let's talk about it all. Shalom from Israel. I'm Hananya Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. The recent elections in Iran are nothing more than a theatrical performance. Pezeshkian, the former heart surgeon, is now Iran's president-elect. The mainstream media is calling him a reformist and a potential friend of the West. But this new president is just a change of hat. That's it. The body is the same, the head is the same, the polling stations were empty. Reports suggested only 10 to 15% of Iranians came to vote. Why? Because Iran is not a democracy. Their votes don't count, and Iranians know that. The only person who determines who will be the president is not the people, but the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. And by president, of course, I mean a puppet of the supreme leader. So a vote means nothing. The only solution Iranians see is to overthrow this regime. Iranians are saying it publicly that when a vote means nothing, revolution is the only solution. This election is nothing more than a desperate attempt by the regime to create a facade of legitimacy. The regime uses these elections to distract the oppressive rule. But Iranian people are not fooled. They know that their voices are being silenced and their futures are being determined by a tyrant. The world must recognize this reality and stand with the Iranian people in their fight for freedom. The Islamic regime's grip on power is weakening, and it's only a matter of time before the people rise up and reclaim their country. And when that happens, the Middle East will be a much better place. Now, let's talk about Europe's political crisis. What we see in France and Britain shows how deadly political correctness can be. Political correctness is killing Europe. France has fallen, Britain has fallen. It's sad because Europe opened its doors to radicals who exploited their kindness. The leader of the French far-left party has already promised to recognize Palestine as a state. Their supporters, after the victory, flooded the streets of France, not with the flag of France, but with the Palestinian flag and celebrated with it. Think about it for a second. There are over 2,300 mosques in France, and still we see Muslims praying in the streets and not in their mosques. They have thousands of mosques. Why is that? And the lives of Jews in France are now in greater danger. And let me explain why. France has the third largest Jewish community in the world, behind those of Israel and the United States. It's a big community. To avoid anti-Semitic attacks, many families have removed mezuzah from their doorstep. Many have stopped using taxis because a lot of the drivers are not friendly to Jews. Many avoid using delivery for the same reason. Others meet the delivery in the street so they don't know where their apartment is. Jews don't feel safe to walk in the streets. So now the far left won the elections, but France lost. This summer, 300 French Jews are going to make Aliyah to Israel. And in 2023, the largest number of Jewish immigrants to Israel from Europe came from France. Look, when a nation compromises its values for political correctness, it loses its identity. France has chosen political correctness over its own citizen safety. And let's see how that's going to work out for them. But please understand, this is not just about anti-Semitism. It's about the erosion of Western values and the surrender of our culture to radical ideologies. The political correctness that has taken over Europe is not just annoying, it's deadly. It prevents us from speaking the truth, from identifying threats, and from taking necessary actions to protect ourselves. And by ourselves, I mean Western society. Europe's leaders have chosen to appease radicals at the expense of their own people. And the result? A continent that is slowly losing its identity, its security, and its future. This is a wake-up call for all of us. The rise of political correctness has led to a situation where it's considered offensive to speak the truth about extremists. This has allowed extremists to thrive, creating a climate of fear and intimidation. Political correctness is not about kindness or tolerance. It's about silencing dissent and enabling radical ideologies to take root. Europe must wake up to this reality before it's too late. And now, if we jump quickly from the European continent to the northern border of Israel, what's going on there? People ask me if we are going to see war anytime soon, and let me answer that with the following answer. I was born in northern Israel. I was brought in northern Israel. My parents live in northern Israel. And what they're saying to me is that it's not whether we will have war or not. We are already at war in the north. Hezbollah is firing rockets and drones daily. There are fires in the north because of these rockets. Tens of thousands of Israelis are evacuated, refugees in their own country. The northernmost town in Israel, Metula, reports that 45% of their homes have been hit by Hezbollah rockets. Life is not normal. And the amazing part is to see the hypocrisy of the world. No outrage, no protests in London or New York City, no encampments on campus when a sovereign country attacks Israel. Because, mind you, Israel did not attack Lebanon. It was Hezbollah that joined Hamas and started launching rockets too. But I do have to say that what's happening inside Lebanon is really interesting. Hezbollah is losing the support of the public. Since the Beirut explosion in 2020, we see a rise in Lebanese people who openly criticize Hezbollah, including journalists. Hezbollah is having a lot of bad days and a lot of bad nights. Israel has eliminated over 350 Hezbollah terrorists since the beginning of this war. When you live by terror, you ultimately face the consequences of your actions. Hezbollah's actions are not just an attack on Israel. They are an attack on the very concept of sovereignty and peace. It's an attack on all of us. The fact that the world remains silent in the face of such blatant aggression shows a lot about where their values lie. It shows a deep-seated bias against Israel and a willingness to ignore the suffering of its people. But despite that, make no mistake, Israel will defend itself. We will not sit idly by while our citizens are under attack. That's what your country would have done if you came under rocket attack. And from northern Israel, let's jump to southern Israel. The situation between Israel and Hamas. The IDF just found a large amount of weapons stored inside a medical clinic that Hamas turned into a terror command. Look what Hamas brought to Gaza. Look at the destruction. The IDF has also reported that it destroyed massive network of 6 terror tunnels in Sajaiya, inside the Gaza Strip, and it eliminated over 150 terrorists in this special operation. The Israeli army is still operating in Gaza despite worldwide criticism. It's very trendy to come against Israel, but ask yourselves, why is the Israeli army in Gaza? Wouldn't it be much easier if the Israeli Air Force targeted Gaza without checking left and right? Sure, but we are not like Hamas. We care for human life. We care for Palestinians. That's why the Israeli army is there, going home after home, door to door, and trying to avoid civilian casualties as much as possible, targeting Hamas, targeting the terrorists, who are the enemy not just of us Israelis, but of the Palestinian people as well. But what amazes me is the hypocrisy of the world. Before the war, Hamas ethnically cleansed a Bedouin village, al-Nasr in Gaza, and shot people left and right. Nobody talks about that. The government of Lebanon built walls around the largest Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon, Ain al-Hilwa, literally creating apartheid, but nobody talks about it. Every day, there are approximately 13 Christians killed by radicals, and again, no one talks about it. Not the UN, not Amnesty. Let's put aside the fact that I'm Israeli. How can I, as a human being, trust the international community to pursue justice if the only thing they do is pursue a political agenda? I can only do 2 things. Pray and use my voice. When the world turns a blind eye to terror, it becomes complicit in that terror. Hamas uses civilians as human shields, turns hospitals into front war commands, and launches rockets from densely populated area. They do this because they know that Israel values human life and will go to great lengths to avoid civilian casualties. This is the evil genius of their strategy. But we will not be deterred. This is what differentiates us from our enemies. We go before our civilians, they go behind their civilians. We respect human life, we sanctify life, they sanctify death. The world must recognize this. So that's it. Friends, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more updates. And if you want to support Israel and fight against BDS and anti-Israel haters, visit theisraelstore.com. Together, we can make a difference. Stay strong, stay informed, and stay proud. Shalom.